following podcast has been paid for by Big Daddy Monroe's Customs.
238 pounds in the black corner. From St. Louis,
Here comes Mr. Crow.
Andre the Giant.
Gonna get his licks in on the bruiser. Hulk Hogan.
Number one, the greatest WWE champion of all time, and in many ways, the man who made the title what it is today, Bruno Sammartino.
his opponent weighing 236 pounds in the white corner. From Van Nuys, California.
Welcome into this very special edition of the Retro Wrestling Rewind presents Collector's Corner. Yeah, that's right, folks. We have two of the top collectors that I've run across in the entire world. Not the United States. That's where Keith is located. But no, we are going way down under. Yes, we are going to Australia with Zaash. Folks, this is going to be a great show. But guys, thanks for taking the time. I mean, it's 10 o'clock in the East. And it's, what, 12-ish in Australia right now?
Yep.
Thanks for coming on. But I just wanted to kind of start off by asking Zaash, this is the question that I wonder. Is collecting in another country different than, I mean, say, like Keith, he collects in the United States. You collect in Australia. I mean, is there a difference? I mean, do you get different wrestling figures? Is it harder to come by to get a wrestling figure in Australia?
Definitely. I've never been to America, but growing up as a kid, I only knew a certain amount of figures. It was basically series 1 to 3 that we got. I'm sure we got the later ones, but I didn't know about them as a kid. I used to go into the toy shop pretty much daily, and I'd go straight to the wrestling figures section and look for a figure that I didn't have. I think as a kid, I probably only had about 10 figures and a ring. And they were all the figures that I knew about.
Yeah. Growing up in Australia, I would assume you spent your entire life in Australia.
Yeah.
Then, it's different. Like in the United States, we saw the wrestlers, they came to an arena near you. You saw the old, like, Bruno Sammartinos. I mean, you see the Hulk Hogans, you see the Corporal Kirchners, you see all the people that you see in the LJNs. But living in Australia, did any of those guys ever come to your town, or did they even come to Australia to even see him in person?
They did. I've got some posters on my roof of some of the shows they did in Sydney and Melbourne. I didn't know about the shows. I guess when I was about 7 years old, I stumbled across it accidentally. I was watching nighttime TV with my dad, and I saw Superstars of Wrestling come on, and it was love at first sight. I just knew straight away that was for me. I got hooked straight away. I went straight to the TV guide, the old TV guide, and looked up and tried to find when it was on and just get my mum to record it on the VCR if it was too late for me, and I just couldn't wait to watch it the next day.
Yeah,
I found out pretty quick it was only on once a week, unless it was the cartoon on Saturday morning. It was the highlight of my week.
And folks, and young kids watching this and listening to it on our feed. Yes, he said a video cassette recorder, a VCR. It's the big tapes. I know kids nowadays, my son who's going to be 5 will never know what a VHS tape is because, I used to tape collect, and that was, back in the mid-'80s. But what do you think is your rarest LJN, that you have? I know you collect LJNs. Do you collect any other types of wrestling figures? I mean, that's the one that most people, back in the 80s, would play with. I would beat the crap out of them. I'm not sure about you, Keith, but I went through about 2 or 3 rings growing up as a kid. I would just beat the ever-loving crap out of my LJNs. They were indestructible. Come 40 years later, the arms are hanging off. They look like crap. And my son The only ones I still have are Iron Sheik and Macho Man Randy Savage, and he loves the Iron Sheik and he plays with it all the time. Did you ever go through a period, Keith, where you would, have fake matches? I mean, did you ever think that you would have a collection like you do?
Well, yeah, I mean, they were probably my favorite toy to play with as a kid, and my parents, they're not well, my dad's kind of a collector himself a little bit. He's kind of even into antiquing now in his retirement, so maybe that played into a little bit. But like when they would when I showed an interest in something, they actually went through the effort of like, all right, well, let's try to get them as many of them as possible. So I was really lucky to have, I would probably say, a good 70% of the whole collection, from my childhood. And yeah, like we would have massive I would have massive tournaments by myself in the basement playing with all of them, and having different feuds and ongoing champions. And yeah, like that was essentially some of the fondest memories from my childhood, and sort of like the development of your imagination when you can kind of just get lost in your own kind of world and kind of make up your own stories.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things that I had friends, but I could always count on having a really good time, going to the wrestling matches or, playing with those figures. And what would you say, kind of put out to you, what would be your rarest one that you have that you've collected over the years, you think?
That's me?
Yes, Keith. Sorry.
Like I said, I was really lucky. Even the Series 6 as a kid, my dad mailed away for a bunch of them. So even as a child, I had Big Boss Man and Haku and Ultimate Warrior and Warlord. So, out of like the Series 6, I was lucky enough to have them. And even we found a white shirt Hogan, I remember as a kid in Toys R Us one day, and I picked that one up. So I had white shirt Hogan from childhood as well. I don't know about the rarest. I was able to finally get a Sergeant Slaughter. That was the last figure I got to. I guess that's not technically an LJN, but I just felt like the collection wouldn't be complete, quote unquote, if I didn't have that one. Honestly, like I said, I had 70% of these things from childhood. I don't collect any other line of toys or anything. They were in my mom's attic for a good, 25 years or whatever the case may be. About 3 years ago, I was cleaning some stuff or looking for something up there and kind of came across them, and it just, I can't really explain what happened. There was definitely a wave of nostalgia, and then I found a number of the groups on Facebook, and seeing the work that some of these customizers were doing, it blew my mind that there were people out there making new LJNs. It really, and then all of a sudden I can't explain it. My wife looked at me what are you doing? I'm I don't know. I need to finish this collection I have from childhood. So just look the other way for the next year or so while I try to track down these rare and missing figures that I don't have in my collection. And then the other thing too is the posters. I had a lot of the posters from childhood too. So I was well, I want to try to get all those because I want to display them with the posters. So that was probably, the posters was, some of the posters were the more difficult things to track down. The Ultimate Warrior poster, and there's actually still two of them that I don't have. The two posters that I don't have original ones of are Strike Force Tito and the Dream Team Tag Team poster. I was able to recently get reproductions of them that look very good. But even just last week, one of those Dream Team posters came up on eBay, and it went for almost $150, and I'm the reproduction looks good enough for now.
Yeah, sounds like y'all both have cool wives with your cool displays. I only have two figures. I had a suitcase full of, I think I had all the figures from LJN, but they were so disjointed. They had broken parts and pieces, and this was before I found that you could actually restore them. What are your thoughts on people restoring stuff and customizing, taking a Hillbilly Jim head and making it into somebody else? Zaash, what's your thoughts on people customizing LJNs to make another LJN or make an LJN that doesn't exist?
Well, since I do it, I'm in all support of it. But look, I still cringe when I cut a head off, especially if it's a cleaner figure than I'd like to do it to. But I think in the end, I'm making something that is a one-off, and I get people asking quite often, to buy my figures, my custom figures, which to be honest with you, I put so much work in. I don't think there's not a lot of money in customs for the amount of work you put in. There's not a lot of money. In the end, if I want to keep making them, I'm going to have to sell them, because otherwise I'm going to need a bigger house. I've only sold a few, but look, I think it's fine. Obviously, we're not cutting heads off, an Ultimate Warrior, a clean Ultimate Warrior, or something that's hard to find. We're not gonna cut the arms off a Warlord. But what a lot of people are doing now is making of them higher end figures. We're making body molds of them, so they're a full resin figure, which isn't as nice as the rubber figure, but it does the job for displaying, and it looks the part.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the video you sent me on Facebook. I mean, what were I know you were doing some stuff. What were you doing in those videos? I mean, it looks like you were making some new molds for some wrestlers.
That was the one with all the customs.
Yes.
That were half done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So look, I've spent a lot of time buying the heads I need and stuff like that. If someone's got a head, it's easier than getting a Mattel head or a Hasbro head and enlarging it, and it ends up costing a lot of money in silicon to get to the point where it's an LJN size head. So it's sometimes easier just to buy them. But if you can't find something that you need, it's also good to make a one-off custom head. Those videos were a mixture of wrestlers that I've cut, and I put screws in, super glue in, putty in, trying to make them so durable that if someone does play with them, they're not going to break an arm off or break a head off, or something like that. In saying that, they're not really built to be played with rough, but yeah, they can endure a little bit of force.
Yeah, and Keith, I mean, what other? I mean, I know, like, I see all the LJNs behind you. What other, I guess, makers of wrestling figures do you collect? I mean, or are you just a purist of LJN? I mean, what is your poison? I mean, was there something that you like to collect more?
Like I said, this was probably like the toy from my childhood that I'm most sort of, whimsical about or nostalgic about. And, when the Hasbros started coming out after the LJN line finished up, I maybe was 11 or 12 years old at that point. I do have a handful of them from the first series. Matter of fact, I put them in a clear lamp and I display them that way. But outside of that, I do have a lot of toys, from my childhood that are still in my mom's attic, G.I. Joes and He-Man and stuff like that. But I wouldn't call myself a collector of those lines at all. I have some of that stuff in the attic, but this was the thing that I don't know, for whatever reason. If you would have told me 4 years ago that my home office would be like, decorated like this, I'd have been like, what? But I just got the bug one day, and that's what happened. When get back to customizing too, I think that was really one of the things, finding the Facebook pages where people, like, just realizing that there was a community of people who kind of like had this weird sort of sentimental attraction to these things, was one thing. And then really being impressed by some of the custom work that people were doing. I just couldn't believe it at first. I've never attempted to do what I would call a custom. I've done some repaints because my goal was to display every poster and to have a figure to display with every poster, but I didn't want to just sort of display doubles of the same figure. So, like, for example, I have like, whatever, like the tag team, I have like, Beefcake and Valentine on the wall as singles, of course, because it's a singles poster, but I have their tag team poster too. So I either like tried to look for a variant if one existed of that figure to display with the tag teams over there, or I did like a repaint of the figure and tried to like do some alternate, you know, outfit or whatever that they were known for or something. And I would say even just doing the repainting, like you said, it does take a lot of time and it is tedious. But it is like really relaxing. I found it to be like really enjoyable to work on those when I was doing them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why I just don't have the patience. I mean, maybe it's, I don't know. I'm with my, you know, almost 5-year-old. It just, you know, at the end of the day, I just want to just go to bed. But Zaash, I mean, I know you were talking about you were building a bigger shed or bigger something to put all your collection. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, it's meant to be for work, but I reckon 60% of it will become a hobby shed. But yeah, it's somewhere where I can work. I want to start doing videos. I just opened up a new Facebook page today, or started one, which I want to do videos and just show people how these things are done, what's involved in it, and stuff like that. And maybe people will want to do it themselves, or just be interested in watching it. But yeah, it's just something for people to check out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely gonna put that in the show notes. I mean, definitely I want people to watch it. But yeah, I mean, the customizers that I've talked with, I do another show called Figuring It Out with a customizer. His name's Jerry Monroe.
He's unreal.
Yeah, and he's gonna make a custom of me, and I can't wait. I asked him how he was gonna do that. He said he may take a ref because I guess I look like a ref, or the body figure of a ref. But yeah, I mean, he is so good. I mean, he can, some of the stuff that he customizes other than wrestlers. I mean, he does serial killer customs. Like people have asked him to make serial killer, you know, people that, you know, and Jack the Ripper, you know, all those famous serial killers. And I'm like, dude, how?
Jerry Monroe's been doing it for a long, long time. You look back on some of his customs from 2016, that man was way ahead of his time. Yeah. People in 2016s were doing really rough customs. You know, they've come a long way since then. But in 2016, they were as good as any.
Yeah.
He's brilliant. There's a few people like that, and he's one of them.
Yeah, I mean, if I ever want a custom, I will definitely go to him. But yeah, I mean, I did not know that there was just, I mean, and I'm going to ask both of y'all, before you started collecting and before the Facebook stuff, did you ever think that there were other people that were as obsessed with figure collecting, whether it's wrestling or anything else besides, you know, before you joined a Facebook group or, you know, the internet came around, did you think people were this obsessed with collecting figures?
Yeah, I mean, I knew there's, you know, I'd seen the movie 40-Year-Old Virgin. I just didn't know I'd eventually become one.
I'm not even going to touch that. So I cannot say anything about that because of all the controversy that, of course, I'm sure everybody's keeping up with wrestling, all the controversy with everybody being called out. So
sure.
You can't really
talk.
What
I mean is, I mean, I never imagined that I'd be like, again, like sort of having this ridiculous display. Like when my friends come over, they're like, what? They're like, wait, did you actually made those little ring posts and ran those little wrestling ropes through there and made the display and everything? I'm like, yep. They're like, wow, dude, okay. You know, they give you kind of like a funny look sometimes, but whatever. I spend a lot of time in this office because I work from home a lot, so this is my happy place. So.
Yeah, I mean, most of my friends and people don't know, or people meet me, that I tell them that I love wrestling and that I was in wrestling for 21 years as a ring announcer, and they go, "And you're married?" I'm like, "Yes, I have been happily married for 23 years." So yes, there are people who can collect wrestling figures and be in wrestling and still be married. Yes, I know that's a rumor, but yeah, I mean, it's. But man, it's been great. I mean, I love hearing about your collecting, and you know, thanks to you guys for coming on. You know, staying up late, and well, it's not late in Australia. It's what 12:32, or is it 12? No, 12:32.
Yeah, just after midday. Yeah.
Hey, thanks for coming on, and we'll definitely have to do it again.
Yeah, this was great. Problem. A lot of fun. Thanks.
All right.
138 pounds in the black corner. From St. Louis,
Here comes Mr. Crow. Mr.
Andre the
Crow
Giant.
Gonna get his licks in on the bruiser. Hulk Hogan.
Number 1, the greatest WWE champion of all time, and in many ways, the man who made the title what it is today, Bruno Sammartino.
his opponent weighing 236 pounds in the white corner. From Van Nuys, California.
The preceding podcast has been paid for by Big Daddy Monroe's Customs.